Welcome to the very first video edition of Behind the Attack, a behind-the-scenes look at the development of Attack of the Sporelings, a D&D 5th edition campaign where you play an alien ooze that crash lands on a planet. Your mission? World domination. Possess the minds of this planet's hosts, feast on the flesh of their dead, and unlock powerful mutations along the way. I've got a bunch of exciting announcements that I am ready to go through today. But before we do, I wanted to kind of address the state of Behind the Attack. This is a series that I started in the tail end of last year, September, October, November, December, or a little bit before that. And it was just a really awesome experience for me to do, and I love being able to kind of share the progress of the game with everyone. But not only for you, for me, it was is a very kind of useful case study where I could kind of like go through, all right, well, what happened over the last month, not just with the game, but with the play tests and developing of the business and everything that was kind of going on. So it was a really awesome experience to be able to lay out kind of line by line, like how did the game move, how did the business move over this past month, and what has changed, and how is it progressing. And it was just kind of this really beautiful experience for me to be able to share with you all. But it just took way too long. I was spending hours and hours and hours every single month. I basically set myself a reminder. Okay, I get towards the end of the month, I should start planning, and then I continue planning as I move into the new month, and then I'm starting to kind of draft the copy, and then I need to edit the copy, and then I need to publish the copy, and then I need to promote it, and it was just a process that kind of really dragged on for me. So I think in December I got there and I said, well, is this worth the time to do it? And it's still a very new business and a very new game that very few people know about. So it was a lot of effort on my part for very little kind of return for the business in terms of from a marketing perspective specifically. So I kind of gave up on December, and then 1 month not doing it made it very easy to kind of just say skip it for several months. And kind of sucked because after that time, like I lost that experience of going through and being like recapping what happened. I very much noticed that progress slowed as a result of me kind of not reflecting on it. And I went through the process and I was like, well, is it worth it? I watched all my KPIs drop out in terms of like visitors, subscribers, all these things, and I was like, well, this kind of sucks. I didn't really have any way to market the game in the past couple months, and I was thinking about that and I had a shower thought. And it occurred to me, I was like, well, what if I just do this as a vlog? Would it be significantly easier? So to me, this was very much a test, right? I was like, all right, can I still accomplish the same goals that I had with this series in significantly less time? That way I can afford to kind of take the time to kind of create it and still get the benefits of it without having to kind of sacrifice a number of other projects or priorities in the process. So I sat down one day and I wrote out kind of the outline order, all the things that I want to talk about. What is essentially the outline for all the things I'm gonna say in this video. And then I started feeling some resistance to it. And I was like, oh, I don't want to record it. I don't want to record it. Whether it was fear or just the a new process. I have to kind of like figure out all these things now. I have to upload it to YouTube and stuff. I was like, all right, I could feel the resistance, but I know that that's a reason to do it. So here I am recording this video, and I'm going to get it up live, and then I will be able to kind of reflect on this process afterwards and say, right, like, right, how did that make me feel? What does this do for the game, for the company, and for all of you who are watching? And is that worth continuing to do? So this is very much an experiment, and I hope it does go well. I hope I get to keep doing this month after month because I really have enjoyed making Behind the Attack in the past, and I'm I'm excited for this new version and this new edition of it. So let's play a little bit of catch up, right? Because it has been about 4 months since the last, I was kind of getting into a nice rhythm, month over month. Here's what's happened over the past 30 days. You can kind of visibly see progress moving forward. But like I said, progress did slow when I stopped kind of like reporting on it. And, it has been 4 months. So really kind of what has happened. So I guess overall progress of the game. Attack of the Sporelings is officially 22 play tests in. And in the beginning, it was a one shot game, and I 19 20 yeah, no, 21 playtests were one shots. There was one somewhere in the middle where we did two sessions in a row to kind of experiment with this idea. Well, what happens if we play the game longer? But I really love this idea of this being kind of like this isolated one shot experience, and I want to play like a Dark Souls and just be very difficult, and you would be challenged and want to play it over and over and over again, having a wildly different experience every time. Um, and as I went through that process, I was trying to optimize the game. Well, how do you make it better? I think one of the constraints was we had to get through so much content in so little time. Even if you're playing a 4 hour session, it's a lot of combat encounters that you have to get through. And I found myself continuously stripping away from the experience of the game to kind of make it fit into the box of here is the one shot experience of the game. So every time I fixed a problem, I ended up creating a different problem in the process, which kind of sucked. Um, and I ultimately got to the point where I said, all right, well, in order for this to actually work, right? Like I think the fundamental issue was trying to make a one-shot experience the way I wanted to make it using the 5e engine. I think that was the fundamental problem. So I said, all right, well, I either need to go find a different system that I can run. And I have truthfully only ever played 5e. So that would take a lot of experimentation and time on my part to go and kind of investigate different game engines to see what would actually kind of better play for Attack of the Sporelings. I could create my own game engine, which probably very similar would take a lot of time to be able to build from scratch and try and figure out, especially with me only having experience playing one game engine. And the third option was, well, what if I make it a board game? So all of those options are on the table, but I decided that ultimately they would all take way too long for me to do and delay the development and the launch of this game, which I did not want to do. I want to be able to get it out in the world. So I said, all right, screw it. I will put those on the back burner. I will figure out the one shot later. I always had the ambition to kind of make both the one shot and the full campaign experience. All right, well, what if you actually play this as a D&D setting and go through and get to kind of like do the crash scene and then play it out? Um, so I said, let me pivot and let me do that. So that is where we are currently at now. We are currently playing playtest session 22, which is the first kind of like full experience. I have 6 players who are going through it. We originally planned to do a five. I was just like, I'm just gonna pick a number. I want to make it short and sweet. I want to make sure everyone can show up and hang out and be able to play it. And let's get a really awesome experience from it. So I was like, let's do a 5 session campaign and see how far that takes us. Um, and as we started playing, we did 3 sessions, and about like session 2, I was like, we're gonna need more time. There's just like we're having so much fun, slow playing the game out, and just really enjoying it. I didn't want to kind of restrict us to 5 sessions, so we had like the three sessions 3 weeks in a row, and then we were supposed to take off this past weekend. And I was just like, hey, like let's just keep playing, and everyone agreed they wanted to keep playing. So we played again last weekend. Was session 4. We'll take a week off and then we'll come back for session 5. That was originally supposed to be the last session, but we do have another one scheduled because I added one in. And truthfully, I just want to keep going. I want to keep going to figure out, right? I don't want to say this is going to take 5 sessions and then let's play and then see what happens. We're here now. We're 4 sessions in. Let's just keep playing and see where we end up. So then that way we have a better idea of how this is actually playing and what is kind of the cap rate, like how many sessions should we realistically shoot for, not based on what I believe but based on actually us playing it and figuring it out together. So it's kind of cool though because the the game experience is wildly different in the full campaign versus the one shot, and a lot of really awesome rules that I developed for this game that just you couldn't make it in the one shot. The one shot was kind of like we need to get through 3 encounters as fast as we can to be able to get to like the final boss fight, and then you either win or you lose. And then that's the end of the session. You can play again next time and deploy different strategies and hopefully roll better and uh, generate different encounters along the way. Um, and with more role playing, with more kind of like stuff that is happening outside of combat, it just opens up these opportunities for like you are heavily mutated by this alien disease, right? Either you have big pustules on your neck because you have the one of the upgrades that one of the mutations that gives you that, or you have a giant mutated arm, or you have reanimated a dead corpse to be able to kind of possess its body. There's kind of these things that make you suspicious when you are not in combat, and if you try and kind of play a little bit more diplomacy, or you're investigating the area and someone sees you, they're going to be like, what the fuck is that? Like, I don't want to be near you. You look really weird. They're either going to be hostile to you or fearful of you and try and run away. So it creates this really awesome dynamic experience. And it's exciting to see that start to play out. That didn't really get to exist in the one-shot campaign. And there's a number of other things that are kind of happening, right? Like, all right, well, if you let someone escape, that changes the game entirely because now they go and tell people. So, right, like the game starts off, there's this fiery meteorite that crashes into the planet. Everyone's like, what the hell is that? Let's go check it out. And then people start disappearing. And then people start uh, people who you thought was a friend starts attacking you and like because you the players have possessed them and are controlling their body and making them do things that they wouldn't want to do. So it kind of creates this story of fear in the planet that you crash land into that kind of starts to play out in the background, which is really exciting that you just don't really get as a vibe when you play the one shot. So there's a lot of really cool things that are happening. In terms of the right, so like those were like game mechanics, but then even kind of like the story. So in the one shot I had created the big, right, like technically you're playing the big bad guy, but right, you needed a powerful enemy to fight against, and in the one shot that was the exalted, right? So it's like you are this, you are the Sporling race, you dominate the entire universe, crash landing into planets and destroying them and then reseeding the universe. um and it gets so bad that the exalted have to come in and they kind of like they are the opposite force of you, right? Like where you are the darkness of the universe, they are the light of the universe, and they are waiting for you. They're exclusively there to kind of like smite you out of existence. And that's the battle that you're fighting, is like, all right, well, you are running for your life trying to crash land on a planet and try and get your species back to kind of like fighting fit and be able to kind of compete. But they are watching you and they show up and kind of take you down. So that's how I kind of made the rules designed for, you're gonna crash land on a planet, within 3 encounters they're gonna show up and try and kill you. Um, Now that the game plays out, I don't have that need for, we need to try and kill you as fast as possible so that way we can just get through the 4 hour session. So it's like, well, what if the exalted don't exist anymore? So I said, all right, well, if you crash land into the planet and you start taking it over and people start figuring it out and people start getting disappearing and getting attacked and all these things and dragged back to the dark spore, and now all of a sudden this meteorite is growing and infecting the lands. It's the people are going to rise for themselves. The army is going to come and kind of track you down. So now the main enemy that you're fighting is the people, kind of like, right, they're fighting against you, they're raising armies to come and attack you. So that's kind of very much the experience um of the game now, like who you're fighting, what is the main enemy. So it's really funny because when I look at the rule book for the games, like I now have to kind of carve out a bunch of the rules that just no longer align and exist, right? Like I have the intro scene, but like how the game is played, like the fact that there are like, you are crash landing into a planet, you are fighting the exalted, you are on the run, the who the exalted are, and all these things now no longer exist. So I'm kind of redefining all these things as we go through the process, which has been a very interesting experience. So, and there's a lot of other kind of small mechanics that are changing. And then as we're going through it together, as a party, I'm kind of learning new things along the way. There was never a need for the dark spore to grow and to thrive and to kind of mutate in that way. So I said, well, what happens if like you not only have to feed for yourselves, you have to sustain yourselves, but you now have to kind of protect the dark spore, the meteorite, the thing that you crash landed on, right? Like that's the true evil, is the dark spore growing and reseeding the planet. Like you are the sporling, you are the kind of servant that helps to enable this process along. So now this dark spore should have some mechanics. It should have kind of growth that comes out of it as you level it up and you mutate it. It should be able to drag people in, so in that way I'm finding that we're constantly going back to the dark spore because they want to bring bodies back there to feed it and to mutate it and to grow it and evolve it. So other things are also coming to investigate the area and investigate the disappearances of the people and all these things. So we're constantly going back to the dark spore, and it makes for a much more interesting kind of combat experience. or even just role playing experience to be like, all right, this thing is growing. What's happening to it? Druids are investigating it and doing running experiments, and then you show up and then you attack them, and now you have their knowledge of what they've learned and who they've shared it with, and all these really cool things. So. That was another thing, right? Like as we just play through it, there's so much more that I'm learning. All right, let's add some new rules. Let's increase the dynamics of the game to kind of fit the experience that we're unpacking and exploring together. So it's a wildly different experience for me running and creating the game. And I'm getting so much feedback from my players and just going through the experience myself to just continue to evolve the game for everything that it is, which has been really exciting. As I kind of had this thought of, I've been sitting here for months and I have no way to be able to market this game. And yes, I'm still creating it, but I need to be able to kind of market and get it ready to launch. I was just saying like, all right, well, what can I do? What ideas can I come up with? Um, it was literally the same exact day that I had the idea, like do behind the attack as a vlog. Try that out, see what happens. I also had the idea of like Attack of the Sporelings, you don't have a typical D&D class subclass. You are playing a stat block, a Sporling. You then infect the host and you now get to use their stat block, right? So you're constantly playing stat blocks and augmenting those stat blocks with items and mutations and anything else that you might find along the way. So you don't have a traditional character. There is no there is no Darkspore patron warlock, right? So I was like, all right, well, what happens if I went and made that? And it not for my game, but just for like a way for other people to kind of experience this world, right? Like you can't play a subclass, and I mean, I guess someone could homebrew it, right? But like the way that I'm designing the game is like you don't play a typical hero with a class and a subclass. Um, so it's like, well, what if you could do that in someone else's campaign, right? So I started to come up with these ideas, and I was like, well, let me just kind of go through it. There are 5 mutations. What happens if I kind of combine those mutations and then spread them out over typical D&D classes? So what I came up with was, I think it was like 10 ideas. I went through the process a number of different times, but I ultimately came up with 10 ideas, and they were combining two of the 5 mutations. I was like, all right, well, here are all the possible mutations that I could potentially come up with. Am I sharing the right screen? Two? Yeah. So here are all the possible mutations I could come up with, right? Thick ooze and infected lung, thick ooze and hunter, thick ooze and mutated arm, thick ooze and telepathy. So I kind of went through and figured out what are all the dual combinations. Did not stop sharing. This is what happens when you create videos for the first time. Um, so here are all the combinations that I came up with. And then I was like, all right, well, let me go assign classes to them, right? So I was like, all right, and I'm sure these will kind of evolve and change over time, but ultimately I said like, all right, a thick ooze infected lung will be a paladin, and a thick ooze hunter will be a druid, and a thick ooze mutated arm will be barbarian. So it kind of gave me these baselines for all these kind of potential subclasses that I came up with. And then I was like, all right, well, where would I start? And my very first character was a warlock fighter, based on or I was inspired to do that because of the first big bad enemy I developed in my first campaign, because I ran a campaign before I ever had a character. So it's like, all right, let me do a warlock. I also just really liked the idea of having a warlock with an infected kind of like blade arm and telepathic abilities. Don't know that he'll get much of the telepathic abilities, but I started to kind of create it, right? So I was like, well, what if you made like a dark spore patron? And this warlock realized like he was watching like his planet kind of be destroyed by this dark spore that kind of landed here, and he was going to die anyway. So he said to this like, I will willingly give myself to you, use me as your vessel, but in turn like kind of give me your powers. So it's this idea of like more of a symbiotic relationship with the sporelings and with the dark spore, as opposed to like a parasitic one like it typically is in the game. But it kind of like gives him the mutations that like that warlock would then be able to go kind of use. So it's all about kind of like making a like a melee gish style kind of warlock. I'm just having a lot of fun creating it. I have some ideas for, like, all right, well, it's, he's like, you start off with the blade arm, and then it kind of like mutates. I'm even kind of like this morning, I was thinking of like, well, what if you kind of, I borrow some of like the fighter battle master, um, like how that kind of lays out. What if you had more abilities to kind of defend yourself? Like you could choose like at a cost to kind of like parry something or to counterattack, just to kind of make you a little bit more, because warlocks aren't great in terms of kind of like melee fighting. So that was kind of an idea I have, and I'm playing around with it, and I can conceptually come up with these ideas, but until I actually playtest it myself, it doesn't really make a difference. So I signed up using Start Playing for a game on Friday, where I am now building a warlock. I'm like halfway through my builds. I have to build them to level 5. But I also kind of have to like figure out the subclass so that way I can go to the DM and be like, hey, is it cool if I run this subclass? Like, so I'm kind of in a mad rush right now to go build this character that I can actually play. I don't want to build one in theory. I don't want to just build the subclass in theories. I want to like build all these things in tandem so I can go actually run it, play it, and see how it feels. Not only at playing it myself, but then also like how other people kind of see it and interact with it, how a DM would kind of respond to it, and things like that. Because I want to put these out and make sure that like people can actually feel comfortable playing them, and DMs can feel comfortable having them in their games. Um, Not only from like a story perspective, but also just to make sure that like they're not overpowered, and like it's not going to be fun to run against them. So um, that is what I'm working on now. Um, I would love to get one developed, designed, and kind of out into the world, and then leave the other 9 for later. I simply don't have the time to kind of be able to go and create all these. So if I can just do one, put it out there, it helps from a marketing perspective. It helps kind of raise awareness about the game and what it is, and have some sort of content that people can interact with, other than, I mean, the only people who know are like my players who I've personally invited. So I'm building this game in an ecosystem that is kind of sheltered from the world. So having content that I can go put out there that people can interact with, give them a kind of taste and a flavor for what this game is, helps me to be able to market the game, especially as I get closer to launch. So I think this is kind of like an important aspect that I'm building towards, but like I can start with one, and then come back and build the rest later. I just have too much that I'm working on to kind of try and split my focus any more than I already am. So I'll build this one and go live with it. Once I build it, I would also love to kind of like find a designer and get it designed as well. Right? I'd love to actually like kind of see some design work for like this bladed warlock, because I not only can use it for the artwork for this, like this marketing material that I have, but it's also a mutation that exists in the game. So like I can double up and use that actually like in the rule book. I can use that as content for the game as well as for like this outside of game kind of experience, which is really cool. Um, Outside of the infected subclasses, right? The game itself, right? So what's the launch plan? It's still kind of unknown, right? I was hoping, truthfully, I was hoping to like have launched the game already, but I think focusing on the one shot has consumed so much time. So it held me back a little bit. Now that I'm doing the full campaign, right? Like I feel much more on track. I feel like I now have like, all right, I know where I'm going. I know I can make this. I know I can make this a reality. I'm not just kind of like spinning cycles anymore. So I can continue to develop the game and get through this playtest that we're on right now. And I've been kind of like building a lot of materials that I can then repurpose for later. So basically, what I want to do is I want to finish up this playtest and then immediately get into the next one. I want to start one like maybe take a week off so I can kind of just decompress and organize my thoughts and the physical rule book and things like that. But I don't want to take much time off at all. I want to just dive back into the experience, because when I'm playing, when I'm interacting, like that's when the most things happen. So I know I just need to keep scheduling time, because that's when progress on the game actually happens. So I can basically take all of the session prep that I'm currently developing session over session, and I can actually like formalize those into the rule book and put them in there. So then that way, when I start the next one, I have right, like I kind of had just like the base rules. I've ran this game as a one shot so many times. very easy for me to kind of just like start prepping sessions and having ideas like, all right, if they go, if you go to the fields, if you go to the cave, if you go to here, if you go to there, like I have something planned and prepped. And then as they're kind of evolving over the game and as the world is interacting with them, I'm impacting those a little bit or changing things up. Um, but now when I play this the second time, I have all this crap ready to go, which means I can just iterate on it. I can make it better. I can add more to it because I always built this game to kind of be like a different experience every time that you play it. And I intend to make it that way even as the full campaign, right? So like as a DM, you could select like, all right, there's either this in the cave or this in the cave or this in the cave. And that might change depending on how far the game has progressed and how strong your team, your party is. So there's always more to add to it and always more to test, but I just have a much stronger baseline off of, like where I'm at and where I can. So what comes next is the next question, right? Like here are the past 4 months, here's how far the game has come and kind of where it is going. I think for April, my priorities are to just keep playtesting. Like I said, the more I play, the more time I spend in front of the rule books, the more time I spend just brainstorming and coming up with encounters and ideas and rules and all these things, the more progress that gets made on the game. So I just need to keep playing as much as I can. We need to get through this playtest. I'm truthfully just going to keep playing it for as long as we're having fun with it until it feels like it comes to a natural conclusion, because I want the game to play as natural as possible in the future. So we need to keep playing through it to figure out what that process feels like. And then maybe I continue to iterate it on it over, this next time I play test it and the next time I play test it. But the main thing is just keep play testing, keep playing as much as I can, just keep working on the game as much as I can. That is the most important thing to continue progress. Um, as I do that, maintaining the kind of like rule book has become more and more important. It's always been like a working document. I did kind of peel off a version for like a beta to be able to kind of share something with the world. The game is wildly different from what was in the beta, especially since I moved over from the one shot to the full campaign. It's dramatically different at this point. However, the rulebook, I needed to create a new version once we moved into the full campaign, because the story is just different and so much is different from it. It's just going to take a dramatic change from what the game used to be. So I said like, all right, let me leave that version as is, because I know I'm coming back to the one shot eventually. So I want to kind of leave myself I want to be able to pick up where I left off. That way I can kind of like take this path down the full campaign and just continue working on that rule set. So there's a lot that needs to be cleaned up in the document, as I showed before. There's a lot of text that's in red that just needs to be ripped out or updated or changed. And then there's more things that just need to be added. Right now, I'm kind of like I have separate from the rule book. I have just like a session prep log, right? Like, all right, what's going to happen potentially? Where are the players right now? What's going to happen potentially? What are encounters that could come up? What places are they close to that they could possibly go to, and what happens when they do? So I have kind of all this prep work that I've done session over session. Eventually I'm going to start need to kind of like formalizing that and moving it into the rule book. So it needs to kind of transition out of kind of like DM notes into official rules. So, right, like just how you would kind of like take a rule book and you would go make your DM notes to run a session. I need to kind of reverse engineer that. I need to take the session notes that I have and then go build it into the rules to be able to make it the book that it will be eventually published as. So just continue to clean up that story and clean up the rules along the way. Um, as I now I still don't have a definite date of I want to launch by now. I 100% want to launch the game. I want to launch the Kickstarter in this year, in 2025. That is important to me. So I'll just figure like, right, I need to tighten up the timeline and know exactly when that launch window is going to be and what steps I need to take in order to get